I'm Gideon Lichfield, and this is the Tips and Tricks module of the AI Spotlight Series course for editors. Now, as an editor, you tend to develop an instinct for signs that something needs a closer look in a story, that maybe the reporter hasn't quite done their homework. Now we're going to look at what some of those signals are for AI coverage. Here are some common slip-ups you might see. The first is accepting AI systems as they are without questioning why they need to be that way. For example, OpenAI might say that hundreds of billions of dollars need to be invested in data centers to build the AI systems of the future. But a more accurate statement is that OpenAI's particular vision of AI demands this. That's because it's trying to build artificial general intelligence and believes large language models requiring massive amounts of compute to train them are the way to get there. But is this the vision the world needs? Are there other ways to get to AGI? Should that even be the goal? Related to that, don't just quote people whose fortunes are tied up in the AI industry as experts. At the very least, acknowledge their personal stakes. Yes, AI is complicated, and you need sources who can explain it, but always think about their incentives to say one thing or another. Next, AI is not just one thing. It's many different kinds of technologies, as we saw earlier on in this course. For example, take this statement. AI could solve climate change, but it could also accelerate climate change. That sentence is actually talking about two different kinds of AI. Machine learning models that are good at modeling complex systems like the climate have very little environmental impact. But the large language models that use vast amounts of power for training would be useless at climate modeling. It's essential to clarify those differences if you want to talk about what kinds of AI are maximally beneficial and minimally harmful. Another common mistake is anthropomorphizing AI as human-like, quotes, intelligence. An example of this is using a phrase like, when asked a question, ChatGPT thinks about the answer based on past problems it has seen. The fact is, ChatGPT doesn't think like a person does, and it also hasn't worked through past problems. All it's done is ingested training data on past answers to those problems. So using words that suggest it thinks like a person is really just feeding the marketing hype. Last one here, don't forget that AI stories are ultimately stories about people. People are the ones who develop this technology. People choose how to test it and deploy it. People benefit from it or suffer its harms. Focusing on people is the best way to make this technology more visible and relatable, and also draws a wider audience for your coverage. Here's a list of red flags to watch for. If a story contains any of these elements, it may be a sign the reporter has taken information they've been given a little too much at face value. For instance, AI will solve such and such a problem. That's like saying tractors can solve world hunger. It ignores the role of people in choosing which problems to solve, which tools to apply, and how to go about it. Next, if a story only quotes one expert's viewpoint, it could be missing some critical perspectives. Think about what other kinds of sources should be quoted. We've already talked about the problem of anthropomorphizing AI, claiming it thinks like a person. By the same token, saying that it has the capability or intelligence level of a child or a dog implies that it works in a similar way to human or animal cognition, even though there's no evidence that it does. Science fiction comparisons, AI like in The Matrix, or Terminator, or HAL 9000, these are generally either apocalyptic or wishful thinking. Stories also shouldn't use big numbers without the proper context. It might sound impressive to say an AI model has 70 billion parameters, for example, but that's actually quite small for a large language model. And anyway, the number of parameters is not a great measure of AI systems capability. Then, a story that talks about a new AI application, but not about the people it affects or why it was developed in the first place, is probably missing something important. Let's say you have a story about an algorithm designed to screen job applicants. The technology might sound impressive, but why is it needed? Who benefits from it? How will its performance be measured? How might it inadvertently discriminate? If the story isn't asking these questions, it's missing something and it's doing a disservice to its readers.